Hello and welcome to the ScatterVolt channel, and today let's discuss what are the best and worst graphics cards to buy in March of 2024, and it is worth making an update to this series. There have been some price cuts, there have been some new graphics cards, and some graphics cards have come back from the dead and are still very good to buy in 2024. So a lot of things have changed. I want to make this update video, and once again, my goal is to hopefully provide you guys with the best graphics card, either according to your price range, or something I'm just going to do for this video is I'll go ahead and cap off the video with my best overall from AMD, Nvidia, and for certain uses. If you want something that can not only do gaming, but also a bit of video editing, content creation, other things, I'll be recapping all of that for the month of March in this video. So I don't want to waste your guys' time, but we don't have a sponsor for this video, boohoo, but I do want to give a shout out to somebody. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Brett from UFD Tech, and he has done something very holistic. He has actually started a new coffee company called Rare Brew Coffee, but it's for all the right reasons. As you guys know, Brett has been a huge advocate for increasing awareness and for even fundraising a ton of donations to contribute towards the Syngap Research Fund, because his son Emmett unfortunately suffers from a very rare condition called Syngap 1, and he has been tirelessly fighting that battle so much, and he has gone above and beyond, and this is his next step towards combating that is through Rare Brew Coffee. So from what I can tell, a portion of the sales from Rare Brew Coffee are going to go back towards the Syngap Research Fund as a means of a donation, I assume. And I think that's a very holistic way of not only supporting your family, but also for supporting and bringing awareness towards a very important cause. And hopefully at the end of the day, eventually reaching a cure for it. So if you want a holistic way of buying your coffee, definitely check out Rare Brew Coffee. And Brett has actually given me a custom discount code called ScatterVolt 10, which will get you 10% off your order. And according to Brett, it'll never expire. Very nice. But yeah, this is not an ad. I'm not endorsed by him in any way. I'm not getting paid for this. It's just a very good message, and I want to bring awareness to it. Brett's doing so much heavy lifting over there. So I'll have a link to his company, Rare Brew Coffee, in the description below. And with that said, let's get into the video. All right, so for under $100, we have nothing. There's nothing good, brand new. Yeah, so just like I said last month, if you want the best graphics card under $100, it's extremely simple. Type in www.facebookmarketplace.com into your web browser, set the price limit to 100, and that is automatically gonna get you a better graphics card than even finding a used graphics card, say on eBay, Mercari, or even Java.gg. Although those sites definitely have their pros, they're gonna ship you the graphics card to you, but on Facebook Marketplace, you're gonna have to meet up with somebody in real life and perform an exchange like that. But generally, from what I've seen across the board, Facebook Marketplace at times can have some insane graphics card deals. But if you're looking for specific models under $100 that I would definitely look forward to, just about any Radeon RX 5000 series of graphics card, whether that be the 5500 XT, 5600 XT, or if you're really lucky, a 5700, under $100 would be crazy. And then from Nvidia, you're looking at, I think, optimistically, like a GTX 1660 Super, maybe a GTX 1660 Ti. Yeah, and that's just about it, I think. The GTX 1650 and 1650 Super, I'm not too crazy about because both of those have 4 gigabytes of VRAM, and I want you to have a graphics card that at least has 6 gigabytes of VRAM if you're gonna spend below $100, which is kind of a high bar, but that's just how it is in 2024. But what about from $100 to $200? Well, good news for you is that I actually just made a PC build guide with one of these two graphics cards right here. So under $200, we have either the Intel ARC A580 or the Radeon RX 6600M. These are the only two graphics card options below $200 you can buy brand new that are worth getting, because there's a third one, and editor, you need to bleep this out. It sucks. Yeah, so Nvidia did release the RTX 3050 6 gigabyte. This isn't even a 3050 anymore because it comes in with a lower amount of CUDA cores, slower memory, and smaller memory at that, at 6 gigabytes. So this isn't even a 3050. It's like a 3040, and it costs $180. And I made a video a while back comparing the 3050 8GB to essentially an RX 6600, which is this right here, the 6600M. And it absolutely ran circles around it. Even if you turn on DLSS with this graphics card, it did not save the 3050. It still got beat by the 6600 natively without any upscaling. So why the would you want to get an even slower version of a graphics card that already sucks? I'm gonna eventually benchmark this graphics card just to show you how slow it is. Video's coming. In the meantime though, both of these graphics cards are very great. If I actually had to pick one right now, although I just made a build guide with the 6600M, according to a recent video from Gamers Nexus, they just provided some updated benchmarks for the Intel ARC graphics cards, including the ARC A580. And on average, it looks like the A580 is actually ahead of the 6600 and the 6600M, which is quite surprising. Of course, there's a few games here and there that it's just not optimized at all, like for Starfield and for some reason Grand Theft Auto 5. But across the board, A580, kind of neat actually. Its only downside again is at times dodgy driver support and its very high power consumption, which you can tweak if you want to undervolt it, but that's just one downside of the card. But one big upside I think a lot of you guys may like is that if you're a video editor, this ARC A580 is the cheapest graphics card on the market that comes with the AV1 codec and also comes with a built-in Intel QuickSync encoder and decoder, which is absolutely goated for editing programs like DaVinci Resolve and Premiere Pro. So if you wanted a budget video editing solution, this is gonna beat anything from Team Green. Nothing from Nvidia, even that 3050 is not gonna come close at all in terms of video editing performance versus the A580. So if you want a great gaming and video editing graphics card that's a decent all-rounder, think about this. But if you wanted the safe option, good power draw, overall good performance, it's not gonna crap out on like one of every 20 PC games you throw at it, then the 6600/6600 is also a pretty good choice. Now for $200 to $300, well, we got this one right here. And then we also got this one right here. And surprisingly, I thought this graphics card died, but it's still here. We got this one right here as well. So you can either check out the RX 7600, the Intel ARC A750, also the A770, but yeah. And then surprisingly, the RX 6650 XT is still in stock. And if I had to give the award to any of these graphics cards, I don't understand, but I thought AMD would have killed this graphics card off because I think you can get the 6650 XT for about $240 through a Power Color Fighter Edition card. That is not too shabby, and more or less it's gonna have about the same performance of an RX 7600, but this is gonna come in with about a $20 discount, because right now the 7600, it's selling for at lowest $260, which is fine. I don't know, there's no spectacular graphics cards, but if I had to choose one, I think the 6650 XT might be it. Because if you're gonna consider the 7600, you might as well jump up to the 7600 XT with additional VRAM. But if you wanted the cheapest graphics card of the lot, the A750, it's all right. I really think an A580 is, at times, an A750 in disguise, but it costs about, what, $40 to $50 less? At about $220, it's not super desirable. I would only pick up this graphics card if it's below $200. But at $220, you might as well get a 6650 XT for $240 brand new, because somehow this graphics card is still in stock. And yeah, that's below $300. Kind of sucks. Now, from $300 to $400, all of these kind of suck in their own ways. So here we've got the 4060 Ti, the 4060, and the RX 7600 XT. All of these can be had for below $400, and I think you should kind of avoid all of these because they're not too spectacular. Because once again, although you can no longer get this on Newegg brand new, you can still buy a 6700 XT for about $330 on Amazon from a company called XFX. And this graphics card, even if it's one generation older, has so much raw horsepower to it that it makes the 4060 Ti, 4060, and 7600 XT look like a joke. Like, none of these offer any huge leap in generational performance over the 6700 XT, with the exception, of course, that frame generation is supported on these RTX 4000 cards, and AMD's version of frame generation through FSR3 is also going to be offering it in some capacity. That's also going to be supported on the 6700 XT, because FSR3 isn't just restricted to RX 7000 cards, it's also going to be on RX 6000 cards. So yeah, I know. I mean, the only one that makes sense would have to be the 7600 XT because of its 16 gigabytes of VRAM, which will very much future-proof you for the future, but it needs to go on a discount. If it were about $300, I'd say, hell yeah, grab a 7600 XT. That is certainly gonna be a better buy than the 4060 Ti, 8GB, or the 4060. But hold your horses if you're like, wait, I still wanna get an Nvidia graphics card because it's gonna be a great all-around card for not only gaming, but also for, say, content creation. Well, if you're gonna use that argument, I like to throw in the A770 into the mix because this graphics card also supports the AV1 codec like these, but this comes with Intel QuickSync, which is a better encoder and decoder for video editing than NVENC. If you don't believe me, check Puget Systems, check their benchmarks between the A770 and the 4060 Ti and 4060, and you'll see this graphics card is technically better. And this also comes with 16 gigabytes of VRAM that isn't gimped. It has a 256-bit memory bus, so it's fast memory in addition to being large in capacity. So A770, it's gonna get a shout if you want to use that argument. So I only possibly see these graphics cards possibly worth it if you're at all gonna do any sort of AI or 3D rendering. But other than that, you really wanna spend more for an Nvidia graphics card. Now, below $500, I do have some good news for you. The 7700 XT finally got a much needed price reduction. Its new MSRP is no longer $450, it's $420. And if you were to check on Newegg right now with a $10 off discount code, you can get a 7700 XT for $410, which makes it considerably more appealing. And maybe come this summer where we get some summer sales, we could see the 7700 XT bang on at 400 bucks or even below, which would be very awesome to see. The only issue with that, it's back. Somehow the 6800 is not dead. If you check on Newegg and Amazon right now and from other retailers from across the globe, you can still grab an RX 6800 for about $380. That's a better deal than this. And I benchmarked both of these graphics cards. And the 6800, still being one generation older, was just slightly faster than the 7700 XT. So honestly, for below $500, both of these are good. If I had to pick one, 6800 would get my bet, but if you wanted the slightly newer graphics card that is going to slightly outperform the 6800 in ray tracing and come with the AV1 codec, then get the 7700 XT. But if you just want a graphics card for pure gaming that provides a lot of raw FPS per dollar, 6800, man, it's not dead yet. This is a really good card, man. Now for below $600, this is by far the best price category out of this entire video. Just about all of these graphics cards are not going to be duds. They're all fantastic and the best from AMD and Nvidia respectively. From AMD, you have the RX 7800 XT, which is going to go down as probably the best graphics card from AMD from this generation. But you also have the introduction of the brand new RX 7900 GRE, which just came out, and despite only costing $50 more than the RX 7800 XT, it provides a pretty good uplift in performance. So for about a 10% increase in price, you're getting about a 10% increase in performance, or a lot more depending on the title. And then from Nvidia, you have the RTX 4070 Super, by far their best priced graphics card out of their entire RTX 4000 lineup of graphics cards, and the 4070 regular, which is the least fantastic graphics card out of this lineup and is certainly well beaten out by the 4070 Super and even the 7800 XT and the new RX 7900 GRE that is meant to go head to head with this. But it's not terrible. I definitely take this graphics card over the 4060 Ti 16GB, which I blissfully forgot about, but spend an extra $100 and get a regular 4070 if you're that desperate for an Nvidia graphics card. But in terms of pure gaming, I think you want to go Radeon in this category, especially with the introduction of the new 7900 GRE. That graphics card comes in with 16 gigabytes of VRAM and is a cut down version of the RX 7900 XT die. In some ways, it's very similar to it, but its memory is technically actually slower than the 7800 XT. And from benchmarks so far, that actually hasn't shown to be that much of a reduction in performance despite having slower memory. But its overall core count and similarities to the 7900 XT definitely let it pull ahead in certain titles. And for about $50 more, I personally take it over the 7800 XT, unless you can get the 7800 XT on discount below $500. If that's the case and you need to save some money on your next PC build, then I think the 7800 XT is equally as impressive. Regardless, both graphics cards come with 16 gigabytes of VRAM, so you're gonna be well covered for the future. And then if you needed an Nvidia graphics card, look no farther than the 4070 Super. It does provide some of the most raw FPS per dollar for an Nvidia graphics card, and before the 7900 GRE came out, it had better performance than the 7800 XT without any form of upscaling. So if you really needed an Nvidia graphics card, the 4070 Super is gonna do it on pretty much all fronts, with the only possible exception being the fact that it has 12 gigabytes of VRAM. So if you're gonna get a 4070 Super for gaming, I would stick it to no higher than a 1440p monitor. Because if you go 4K, that 12 gigabyte VRAM buffer is quickly gonna run out of memory when you get into more graphically taxing games a few years from now. And yeah, I kinda skipped the 4070, but if you're like, oh, but what about the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte? No, please, don't get that graphics card. Get this one, please. Okay, so hear me out, guys. I purchased the graphics card that I ultimately recommend in this next price category. It's just not here yet. I need it for an upcoming benchmarking video, but otherwise, these are the graphics cards that I have below $800 that are worth getting from Nvidia, but the one I'm ultimately gonna have to recommend for gaming is once again the RX 7900 XT, and it is on an even better price discount than where it was, say, before the holidays. You can get it for at $700 bang on, and you get so much hardware for the money from that 7900 XT. It still outperforms the 4070 Ti Super, even with this having more VRAM. And of course, it absolutely demolishes the original 4070 Ti with its very small miniature 12 gigabyte VRAM buffer, which is really pitiful for a graphics card that costs about $770 right now. If you want a graphics card strictly for gaming, the 7900 XT I think is gonna offer a lot of value for a high-end graphics card. Once again, that 20 gigabyte VRAM buffer is too big to ignore. But at the same time, I think we need to give a little bit of props to the 4070 Ti Super, because at the end of the day, it isn't a graphics card from Nvidia that comes with 16 gigabytes of VRAM, which we may not see the gains for that now in 2024, but in a few years with more graphically demanding games at higher resolutions, the VRAM on this graphics card is going to age a lot better than the VRAM on the original 4070 Ti. So that extra 4 gigs, I think, is worth it. I don't think this graphics card is as strong in terms of FPS per dollar versus the 4070 Super. That graphics card by far is the better buy if you want to go strictly off of hardware for the money. But this just simply coming with more VRAM at a more affordable price point in terms of a video graphics card at $800 is not too bad either. But like I said, ultimately at the end of the day, 7900 XT is the way to go. And do not get the 4070 Ti. Its time is done. And to finish things off, for the most expensive graphics cards, you should, honestly, this is overkill. Like, I've said this in the last few videos that I've made up to this point for this series. You should honestly stop at like $600 for a graphics card purchase. You do not need any more than that. But if you do, like say if you play at 4K across 3 monitors, you're gonna be looking at either the 4080 Super or the 7900 XTX. Both of these graphics cards are fantastic, but one of them suffer from inventory and pricing issues, and that is the 4080 Super. This comes in with 16 gigabytes of VRAM for essentially what would it be at 4080 at $1,200 for now at $1,000. The performance difference between this graphics card and the original 4080 is so minuscule, you won't even notice it. Just the only noticeable difference is the price increase if this graphics card could actually be sold at $1,000. Right now on Newegg, it's going for no less than I think $1,100, And on Amazon, it's even worse. So it's like the 4080 never left. This is just the new 4080 at the same price. It just has the Super logo on it, and its performance increase is very small. So this graphics card unfortunately can't hold the really great $1,000 MSRP that was probably its main selling point for even existing in the first place, which once again brings me back to the ever amazing 7900 XTX. You get so much hardware for the money with this graphics card, and even if it is an AMD graphics card, the software can always be updated over time. You can never update the hardware on a graphics card. You can't physically rip out the VRAM modules on a graphics card unless you're a high-end modder who can do that. But even then, you need modded drivers because it has modified VRAM, and it's just a whole mess. So for AMD graphics cards, you're paying for the hardware. For Nvidia graphics cards, you're paying for the software. But once again, you can always update the software on a graphics card. AMD's frame generation technology may not be perfect right now, but it certainly can catch up to Nvidia's in the near future. Although Nvidia has had a stronghold on CUDA for the longest time, AMD is catching up with their version of CUDA called ROCm, or ROCm, however you want to pronounce that, and it's available on higher end graphics cards like the 7900 XTX, which will act as CUDA for an AMD graphics card. And even for AI, I think AMD is allowing some things when it comes to AI with these graphics cards to make better use of that. I mean, who wouldn't? AI is really selling high-end graphics cards like the 4090 and even the 4080 Super in certain instances. So this graphics card in terms of software can catch up, but it's got the hardware to back it up. Whereas the 4080 Super, although it's definitely fast right now in 2024 for high-end gaming, it may not hold up as well as the 7900 XTX 3 years from now, because again, this has 24 gigabytes of VRAM and a lot of computational hardware in it. It's fast. And it's below $1,000. It's actually staying true at about $950. So I'd get this one just because it's cheaper, better, you get more hardware. If you're really crazy about ray tracing, obviously get this one. But from what I can tell from the majority of my comment sections, a lot of you guys aren't rushing to turn on ray tracing. But if you're buying a graphics card for about $1,000, I can definitely see why you want to turn on ray tracing. So that's where the 4080 Super exists. But don't get me wrong, the 7900 XTX can also do ray tracing. Certainly is fast enough to do it. So at the end of the day, what are the graphics cards I would ultimately recommend from each brand? Well, if you want a graphics card from Nvidia, look no farther than the 4070 Super. That is the best bang for buck right now for an Nvidia graphics card if you're planning to stick at 1440p. But an honorable mention, I think it's gonna have to go to the 4070 Ti Super. Yes, it gets beaten out by the 7900 XT from AMD for more, by about $100. But what it does provide you is 16 gigabytes of VRAM. And I always care about how much VRAM is in a graphics card when it comes to these recommendations. And that is the one thing the 4070 Ti needed to become a more compelling graphics card. So like I said, although it's not the fastest graphics card in its price range, at least it has hardware that won't bottleneck you in a few years to come. Whereas say getting a regular 4070 Ti with its 12 gigabyte VRAM buffer, it's not gonna last long. And then from AMD, it's gonna have to go to the RX 6800. Somehow that graphics card is still available, still in stock, at a discounted price of $380, which is still like only $10 more expensive than its all-time low price that I observed in Black Friday last year. It's a fantastic graphics card. If you need the most raw FPS per dollar out of this entire video, grab an RX 6800. And once again, it comes with 16 gigabytes of VRAM. But if I had to give an honorable mention, it's gonna have to go to the 7900 XT at $700. It's all you need. If you need a graphics card that can survive the next graphics card apocalypse when AI or cryptocurrency takes over, that graphics card still has plenty of beef to back it up for gaming, not just now, but also in a few years to come. 20 gigabytes of VRAM is gonna keep you well suited for such a long time. And like I said, it's a very fast graphics card for the money. It beats the 4070 Ti Super for $100 less. Need I say more? And then for the best budget graphics card, I'm gonna have to give it to the Intel ARC A580 actually. It's been coming down in price a little bit, And thanks to recent driver updates from Intel, it probably beats the RX 6600 now. And the only con to it, other than slightly dodgy GPU drivers here and there, is its high power consumption, which you can get around through an undervolt if you really wanted to go that far. Then if you're looking for graphics cards that are good for video editing and gaming, for on the budget end, I think Intel Arc definitely has the edge over Nvidia. So the ARC A770, ARC A750, and the ARC A580 are their cards to look forward to. But above that, AMD does have the AV1 codec, and their traditional codec support is also pretty decent on DaVinci and Premiere. So I'd say if you care more about gaming, but you also want to do a little bit of video editing on the side, an AMD graphics card wouldn't hurt at all. But if you care more about video editing, like if you run a business that deals with that, then it would be smart to get an Nvidia graphics card like a 4070 Super or a 4070 Ti Super. And then if you deal at all with AI or 3D modeling, obviously get an Nvidia graphics card. You can't go anywhere from that really on other brands. So there you have it. Hopefully this video wasn't too long and too winded for you, but hopefully it was informative in some way. And if you enjoyed it, give it a like. That'd be really nice. And if you enjoy these kinds of videos, I think you should subscribe to the ScatterVolt channel because it'd be worth it. So with all that said, thank you so much for watching. And this is the ScatterVolt channel signing out.